I recently went to Second and Charles for the first time, and while I was roaming through the shelves, I found a trilogy of books written by Bella Thorne. They were used copies, which marked down their price. I immediately decided to buy them since Bella Thorne was a huge part of my childhood. I was a shake it up girly after all. I remembered when these books came out. I was in middle school, so I was edging out of my Disney Channel days, so I never ended up buying them. I thought it would be fun to not only give them a read now, but to also share my thoughts with you about all of them. Book 1, Autumn Falls. The book starts off in the kitchen of our main character, Autumn Falls. Autumn is cooking some food for her father, who is on his way home from visiting his mother in Florida. Florida also happens to be where Autumn's family is moving to, something Autumn is not happy about. She admits to the reader that she spent the last few months hating her father and being rude to him over the move. She had a change of heart, however, when her father told her that he would be stepping down as CEO of his company in order to spend more time with his family. Up until then, he had been too busy with work to really be in his family's lives, but he wants to change that. Hence why Autumn is cooking him this meal as an apology for how she treated him. It's here where we meet Autumn's best friend Jenna, Autumn's younger brother Eric, and her mother. Autumn laments to the reader that she still needs to find her thing, or her purpose in life. Jenna's is athletics, Eric's is videography, but she has no idea what hers is. While cooking, Autumn peels off a chunk of skin from her finger with a potato peeler, which is just weirdly glossed over. Like, bro, are you at least going to get a band-aid or something? Like, blood is getting all over the food. It's definitely a health hazard. Anyways, Autumn's family gets ready to pick up her dad from the airport. Before they are even out of the door, however, Autumn's mom receives a phone call. This call is about Autumn's dad, who is revealed to have just died in a car accident on the way to the airport. After this dramatic reveal, we have a 6-week time jump to Autumn's first day of school in Florida. Despite her father's death, the family went through with the move. Autumn's mom justified it by saying that it's what Autumn's father would have wanted. She's still grieving her father's death, though, and is jealous that Eric seems to have moved on. At one point, Autumn projects her insecurities of not fitting in at her new school onto Eric, telling him that people will think he's weird. She revels in his misery for about a minute before regretting the action. On her walk to school, Autumn runs into a boy named JJ. JJ's thing is word puzzles, mainly anagrams. He immediately clocks Autumn's first and last name as an anagram for a lustful man. The two immediately hit it off, giving Autumn hope that she'll make some friends at her new school. Feeling relieved, she sends a text apologizing to her brother for what she said to him that morning. Before going to her classes, Autumn has a check-in with the school principal, Mrs. Dorio. Mrs. Dorio grills Autumn, telling her all the possible expellable offenses. She gets out of this meeting after her classes have started, making her late to her class. Autumn tries to sneak into the classroom, but ends up tripping and face-planting in front of the entire class, caught off guard by her teacher saying her name for attention. Another student makes another joke at Autumn's expense, saying, "Check it out. Autumn falls." A boy named Sean comes over to Autumn and helps her up. She's immediately attracted to him, lusting over his biceps. Before Autumn can revel in the moment, however, another girl in the class loudly exclaims that Autumn has a growth on her head. As Autumn and Sean collect her things, the teacher makes a comment directed at Autumn, but basically to the whole class, telling her to hurry up, which causes the other students to once again laugh at her. After a few more awful classes, Autumn heads to lunch. Before she can end up sitting by herself, JJ calls her over to his table with his two friends, Jack Rivers and Amelita Leibowitz. Jack is a stereotypical comic nerd, but he has a heart of gold. He is rather annoying and kind of an incel, so watch out for that. Amelita's thing is cosmetics. Her and Autumn immediately bond over their Hispanic heritage and that they both speak Spanish. Amelita takes Autumn's face and heavily inspects it before listing off some beauty advice for Autumn. Autumn, shocked at the kind gesture, starts to cry. She quickly composes herself before apologizing to her new friends for weird behavior. Amelita grabs Autumn's hand and tells her how sorry she is for the loss of her dad. Autumn is shocked that Amelita even knows about her dad's death, but it turns out that Jack had found out about it when researching Autumn after JJ told him about her, seeing it in an article about her mother's dog rescue. While Autumn takes that in, Amelita stands up and shouts at a girl named Taylor, telling her to join them at their table. Taylor doesn't respond initially, but then reluctantly splits from her friend group, the popular kids, to talk to Amelita. Turns out that Taylor was the one to comment on the growth on Autumn's face. Jack and JJ give some exposition on Taylor. It turns out that her and Amelita were best friends until about 3 months prior when Taylor ditched her to become friends with popular girl Marina Tresca, or Rinzi. Rinzi is your typical popular fake-ass bitch. Think Regina George, but somehow even more evil. Taylor tells Amelita that she is embarrassing herself by causing such a fuss over her. Amelita retorts that actually Taylor is the one embarrassing herself by being so fake. Rinzi comes over to collect Taylor and insults Amelita, calling her a pit bull. Amelita claps back, listing all the best friends that Rinzi has switched between throughout the years. She says somebody would have to be brain dead to think Rinzi would actually be loyal to somebody. Taylor and Rinzi throw out some final insults before walking away. After the confrontation, Autumn asks Amelita if they should go to the mall together after school to get the makeup she told Autumn about. Later at the mall, the girls are sampling makeup products. They once again run into Taylor and Rinsey as well as their friends Zach and Sean. Sean, not knowing about the confrontation between the girls at lunch, introduces them all to each other. He even invites the pair to join them for dinner at the food court. Rinsey immediately shuts down the idea, coming up with the excuse that her mom already made food and that they should leave to get it. After the group leaves, Amelita tells Autumn that she's officially on Rinsey's hit list. This is because Rinsey has a crush on Sean. Sean doesn't reciprocate these feelings, however he seems to have a thing for Autumn, which sparks jealousy from Rinsey. Side note, but Autumn has literally only been at the school for one day and is already in a love triangle between her, the most popular dude in school, and the head bitch in charge. Shit's crazy. When Autumn gets home, her mom plays a voicemail from her grandmother, Eddie, who says she has a life-changing gift for Autumn. Autumn doesn't want to visit her, however, since she blames her for her dad's death. If Eddie wasn't sick, then her father wouldn't have been in Florida to take care of her, and he wouldn't have gotten into his accident. Autumn's mom talks her into going, and Autumn makes a plan to reluctantly see Eddie the next day. When Autumn gets to school the next day, her locker won't open. She tries the combination several times to no avail. Her friends try to help, but they end up having to get a janitor to cut the lock. The whole locker debacle causes Autumn to be late to class for the second day in a row. Her teacher makes a comment about how late she is, and the class once again laughs at her. While the class is making fun of her, Autumn catches Rinsey winking at her, confirming her as the culprit. After school, Autumn goes to see Eddie. Eddie is insanely fun, singing to the other seniors in the senior home. She even tries to get Autumn to perform with her, but she refuses, being weirded out by the whole situation. After some rambling and babbling, Eddie brings up the food Autumn was making for her father the day he died. Autumn is taken aback since her family never talks about that day. Eddie then pulls out the gift she told Autumn about, the gift that will change her life. The gift is a brown leather journal that her father left with Eddie before he passed, telling her to give it to Autumn after his death. Autumn is shocked at this, wondering why her father would choose to leave if he knew he was going to die. Eddie responds that he could only change certain things, and that did not include his death. Before Autumn can ask any more questions, however, Eddie's mind starts to slip, but not before making Autumn promise to write in the journal, which Autumn agrees to. When she gets home, Autumn starts to write a note for her dad in her journal. At the bottom of the note, she writes, "I wish just one thing here could be easy." This wish seemingly comes true within the next 2 weeks when she aces a French test. Other than the test, everything else in Autumn's life has been rather difficult. She's been struggling with getting her homework done on time, as well as the whole Rinsey issue. Autumn laments in her journal that she is so nervous about what Rinsey has planned, writing, "I wish that if Rinsey were going to do something to me, she'd just go ahead and do it so I wouldn't have to wait." Later that night, Autumn gets a text from Amelita saying not to check the student portal. Of course, Autumn does the opposite, opening the student portal where she is greeted with a horrendous photo of herself sitting front and center on the home page. The next morning, Autumn finds a note in her locker telling her to go to the principal's office. Autumn is ecstatic since she thinks Rinsey will get in trouble for embarrassing her. Mrs. Dorio, however, has no interest in any accusations Autumn has to offer unless there's solid proof. While she wants to help Autumn, there's nothing she can do without evidence. Rinsey's brother goes to MIT and is a tech whiz, so she probably had him do it, which is also why the school couldn't trace it. Angry at the love triangle she stumbled into over a boy she barely knows, Autumn writes in her journal, "I wish I had the chance to at least hang out with Sean, just so I'd know if he's worth the trouble." Autumn finds another note in her locker, this one reminding her of her class in the ADAPT program, or Aventura's Developmental Advancement Program for Teens that helps students with learning disabilities. Quick side note, Autumn has a lot of similarities with her author. Her and Bella Thorne both have dyslexia, a dead dad, and a Hispanic heritage. Autumn's appearance also resembles that of Bella Thorne from her Disney Channel era. Anyways, Autumn tells her friends about ADAPT, but tells them not to tell anybody about it. She's not ashamed of her dyslexia, but she doesn't need another reason for Rinsey to make fun of her. When Autumn enters ADAPT, she's greeted by Sean, who is in this class for auditory processing disorder. It's honestly really nice to see a popular jock character with a disability. Autumn and Sean talk, with Sean saying that he sees Rinsey as a sister and could never be romantically interested in her. He then asks Autumn if she wants to hang around after school and watch his track practice. She agrees, making another wish of hers come true. Autumn watches Sean's track practice, but of course Rinsey is also on the team as a pole vaulter. Rinsey constantly gives death glares at Autumn. Rinsey's constant pressure has Autumn on edge and annoyed. She writes about Rinsey in her journal, saying, "I wish she'd slip and fall and her pole would split." Just a few minutes later, Autumn hears a loud shriek. She looks over to see Rinsey covered in shit. Autumn goes to write in her journal again, but realizes she made an error in her last statement, instead writing, "I wish she'd slip and fall in a pile of shit." Autumn flips through her other journal entries, realizing that all the other wishes she'd made in it come true. This realization, Autumn writes a wish to her dad. "I wish you'd never died and we all lived here in Aventura together, just like we planned." Autumn wakes up the next morning to the sounds of her dad's voice. Autumn sprints downstairs, calling her father's name, only to realize it's a home video her mom and brother were watching on their TV. Autumn feels stupid and frustrated at the event while she gets ready for school. Before she heads out, her mom stops her, worried about her earlier behavior. Autumn lies to her, saying that she had a dream where her dad was still alive and was just confused when she woke up. The two hug, with Autumn feeling better after letting her feelings out. When arriving to school, Autumn is immediately stopped by Amelita, who informs her of a competition to win a night out with Kyler Leeds, the pop idol of their dreams. Autumn is skeptical, saying that there's too small a chance of them winning. Later after homeroom, Sean asks Autumn to hang out again, sparking more jealousy from Rinsey. Autumn once again juggles with whether or not her journal is actually magic. She decides to test it out again with a more realistic wish. A wish the cafeteria would serve pizza instead of tamales today. Autumn's wish comes true, with the cafeteria serving pizza after the tamales were magically found to be rotten. Autumn asks her friends at lunch what they would wish for if they could wish for anything. JJ mentions that he would wish for a date to the winter formal. It's obvious the date he's talking about is Autumn, but she's oblivious to him. Instead, she writes, "I wish Sean would ask me to the winter formal." Autumn's wish comes true the next day while hanging out with Sean when he asks her to the winter formal. Autumn calls Jenna, her friend from her hometown, and tells her about the magic journal. Jenna believes Autumn, but tells her she needs to figure out the rules of the magic journal from Eddie, since wishes typically have consequences in the long run. Autumn could be messing with something potentially dangerous. Autumn is upset with Jenna's negative reaction, writing, "I wish Jenna would calm down and not worry about the journal so much." Jenna texts Autumn shortly after, apologizing for freaking out over what is probably nothing. So yeah. Less than 100 pages in, and Autumn is already abusing her power to bend people to her will. Autumn is elated at her newfound power, but decides to save it for important things since there's probably some truth to Jenna's warning. At school, JJ asks Autumn to the winter formal. Autumn turns him down since she agreed to go with Sean the night before. Amelita isn't happy with this, telling Autumn that she could do so much better than Sean, especially based on the people he hangs out with. We then have a 2-week time jump. Autumn goes into school and notices people staring and whispering as she walks through the halls. She thinks nothing of it until a girl comes up to her and says she is disgusted by what Autumn did. While watching Sean's track practice that afternoon, Autumn gets a phone call from Amelita. Apparently, JJ had done some digging and found out that a rumor had been spread about Autumn, accusing her of getting pregnant in Maryland. Autumn's dad was apparently so ashamed of the supposed pregnancy that he committed bed and nether, if you know what I mean. Autumn shouts at Rinsey from the bleachers before storming down to meet Rinsey on the field. Autumn attempts to throw a punch at Rinsey, but Rinsey avoids it, instead doing a fucking side sweep and knocking Autumn to the ground. Like, that's some Power Rangers type shit. Anyways, Autumn is then sent to the principal's office. Since Autumn didn't actually land any punches, she's just given detention and a call to her mom. Autumn's mom expresses concern over Autumn being bullied, offering to send Autumn to a private school in order to avoid further harassment. Autumn rejects the offer, however, saying she doesn't need to run from her problems. When Autumn arrives home, Sean's SUV is waiting outside of her house. Sean apologizes for not telling Autumn about the rumor as soon as he heard about it. Autumn asks Sean if he thinks Rinsey started the rumor, which he scoffs at. He's blissfully unaware of how much of a bitch Rinsey really is, and won't believe she started the rumor without evidence. After Sean leaves, Autumn writes in her journal, "I wish Rinsey would get over Sean and stop doing evil things to me." The next morning, Rinsey is being uncharacteristically nice to Autumn, even getting Autumn to sit next to her in class. Sean later admits to Autumn that he told Rinsey to be nice to her, though not because he thinks Rinsey started the rumor, but because he wants Rinsey to be friends with the girl he likes. After a few days of peace from Rinsey, Autumn sees her making out with a random junior from the track team. It seems that Rinsey has totally moved on from Sean, and in turn, Autumn. The winter formal finally arrives, and JJ ends up going with his ex, Carrie. Despite not having any romantic feelings towards JJ, Autumn almost seems jealous of his date. She also thinks about what JJ will think of her dress and what he'll say about it. Yeah, totally platonic thoughts. But of course, Autumn is at the dance with Sean. She pushes her thoughts of JJ out of the way and dances with her date. And her and Sean end up having their first kiss. The next week, Autumn walks into school to people staring at her yet again. People shove her in the halls, and even Sean is giving her the cold shoulder. Amelita shows Autumn a web page that serves as a sort of Aventura expose page. The pages state that it's anonymous, but the detail of it being written by somebody who just moved to town puts it on Autumn. The website also has specific paragraphs about certain students, such as Amelita's calling out a heat rash she had on her stomach. This was something only her ex-friend Taylor knew about, so Amelita knows it wasn't Autumn. Since Taylor is friends with Rinsey, it only makes sense for Rinsey to be the culprit, with Taylor relaying information to her. Autumn is confused, however, since it doesn't line with her wish for Rinsey to leave her alone. Autumn is once again sent to the principal's office. She isn't punished since there isn't solid evidence that either she or somebody pretending to be her wrote the webpage. On her way back to class, Autumn runs into Sean in the hallway. He looks self-conscious of being near her, but he does tell her that he knows it wasn't her who wrote the Aventura burn book. Despite her doubts on its validity, Autumn once again writes in her journal. She angrily writes about the website situation and then writes another wish. "I wish that next time, Rinsey's the one who gets hurt." After an afternoon of lounging around, Autumn gets a call about a car crash that Renzi got into. Autumn is horrified, realizing that the car crash was her doing and that her wish came true. She texts Sean for more details on the accident, and he tells her that Renzi fell asleep at the wheel, hit a phone pole, and was ejected from the car since she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She's alive, but her leg is broken in 3 places. Autumn updates Jenna on the journal situation. Jenna tells Autumn to get rid of the journal. Autumn wants to agree, but she feels like she can't since the journal is connected to her dad. Jenna tells Autumn to at least take the book to Eddie to get more information on it just in case. Despite getting in a car crash the previous night, Renzi is back at school the next day with a purple cast for her troubles. Autumn attempts to apologize to Renzi, but she isn't having it, especially since she has no idea that Autumn actually caused the accident. After getting attitude from Renzi, Autumn asks why Renzi treats her the way she does. Renzi simply states that things just work better when everyone knows their place. After school, Autumn goes back to Century Acres. Autumn asks Eddie what she knows about the book. Eddie reveals that Autumn's dad had a strong connection to the spirit world, which is how he knew he would die. He gave Autumn the journal as a means of giving herself peace and happiness to her tiny corner of the world. Eddie also tells Autumn that the markings on the journal are a zemi, a symbol that shows a connection to the spirit world. Eddie also reveals 3 things that she was told the journal can't do: change history, nothing impossible such as human flight or bringing back the dead, and if it doesn't work, that doesn't mean it's broken forever. Basically, the journal can say no to a wish, but that doesn't mean the next one won't work. Autumn calls Jenna and tells her that she's found a purpose, helping others and bringing peace with her journal. With her newfound purpose, Autumn makes another wish. I wish that everyone at Aventura High could find out exactly what Renzi did to me and see her for the person she really is. Despite her wish, nothing changes for Autumn the next few days. What does happen, however, is Renzi breaks up with her boyfriend following the accident, and Sean is basically at her beck and call trying to help her. Autumn, surprisingly, doesn't think much of it. Sean apologizes for how he treated Autumn directly after the website situation. Autumn accepts his apology, however, she is upset that he thought she could have written any of the stuff on the website, especially the paragraph about him. The paragraph about Sean refers to him as the R-slur and makes fun of him for his disability. After a few more days pass, Amelita tells Autumn to tune into the announcement for the Night of Dreams with Kyra Leeds. Autumn says that there's no point in watching for the winner since there's no chance of her winning since she didn't enter. She ends up watching it anyways for Amelita and watches Kyra Leeds announce her as the winner of the sweepstakes. Autumn is shocked she won since she never entered, but her mother reveals that she entered for Autumn. Amelita immediately calls her, and Autumn confirms that of course Amelita will be her +1. While the two are chatting, Renzi calls Autumn. Before she answers, Amelita tells her a scheme to get back at Renzi. Have Autumn lead Renzi on and pretend that she's taking her as her +1, then drop Renzi at the last second, embarrassing her. Autumn does just that, taking the call and agreeing to hang out with Renzi. Autumn realizes that winning the sweepstakes was the journal's way of making her wish come true, letting everybody see Renzi for who she is by embarrassing her, I guess. Anyway, the next day, Autumn's phone is buzzing with texts and emails from people congratulating her. In a conversation with JJ, Autumn reveals her revenge scheme. She adds some extra stuff to it. Since Renzi has invited her over to her house, Autumn is going to try and find evidence to prove that Renzi made the anonymous website and all the other things she's done to Autumn. As Autumn walks into school, everyone's moods have done a complete 180. Instead of harassing her, they all want to talk to her about the competition. Autumn ends up sitting next to Renzi in homeroom and at lunch. She's gone full infiltration mode, very mean girls. After school, Sean and Renzi go to pick up Autumn. However, instead of going to Renzi's house, the 3 go to a nearby fair. Well, actually, just the 2 of them. Renzi forces Sean to leave as soon as they get there, saying that this is her time to bond with Autumn. The 2 end up having a pretty fun night, with Autumn saying that even she was a little won over by Renzi's charisma. Of course, that charisma doesn't make up for everything she's done. The next day at school, Sean asks Autumn why she picked Renzi as her +1 for the night with Kyra Leeds, worried that Autumn is just doing it for him. Autumn lies and assures him that she invited Renzi because they're friends. Boy, this isn't going to backfire on her when she drops Renzi. But anyways, at lunch, Autumn suggests to Renzi that they hang out again, attempting to get an invite to her house to steal some evidence. Renzi, however, insists on going dress shopping for their night with Kyra Leeds. There's also some tension between Renzi and Taylor, with Taylor feeling left out as Renzi starts to replace her with Autumn. While dress shopping, Autumn once again starts to have doubts about her plan, worried that it'll somehow blow up in her face. However, her worries dissipate when Renzi invites her to her home for dinner the next night, giving Autumn the perfect opportunity to collect evidence that she was hoping for. The next day, while printing out an assignment, Autumn is confronted by Taylor. Taylor tells Autumn to stop stealing her friends and that Renzi will drop Autumn after the night with Kyra Leeds. Autumn tells Taylor that getting dumped by Renzi is justice for Taylor dropping Amelita. Taylor replies that it isn't justice, she just didn't want to be attached at the hip to Amelita, and Amelita couldn't handle that. This makes Autumn question if Taylor was just jealous of her hanging out with Renzi, or also Amelita, Jack, and JJ. Before class the next day, Jack and Amelita give Autumn a pep talk for their plan, as well as a flash drive to download any evidence on. Autumn and Renzi watch the track team practice. While they do, other students come up to them and ask them about the night with Kyra Leeds. While Autumn watches Renzi bask in the attention, she wonders if dumping Renzi will backfire, making her look like the bad guy instead of Renzi. That night, Autumn goes to Renzi's house. Renzi's mom gives Autumn a tour of the home. It turns out that Renzi's room is on the second floor, which will be hard for her to get up to quickly with her crutches. However, Autumn's plans are complicated by Sean's presence since he was also invited to dinner. While the three are watching a movie, Autumn sneaks off to Renzi's room under the guise of using the bathroom. While in Renzi's room, Autumn finds a Word document on Renzi's computer with the exact text that was on the anonymous website. Before Autumn can transfer the file, however, Sean opens the door to the room. He asks what Autumn is doing, and Autumn reveals that she was looking for evidence. Sean asks if all this time Autumn was spending with Renzi was just to get dirt on her. Autumn admits that the answer is yes, and that she was planning on taking Amelita to meet Kyler Leeds instead of Renzi. She tells Sean that the evidence is right in front of her, so her actions are justified. Sean, however, says that she's just as wrong for breaking into Renzi's computer and pretending to be her friend, though he does agree to keep the situation secret so long as Autumn tells Renzi the truth about the night with Kyler Leeds and leaves the house. He also threatens Autumn that if any of the evidence came out, he would snitch. Autumn does as Sean asks, telling Renzi the truth. After a lot of screaming on Renzi's part, Autumn leaves with Sean slamming the door in her face. The next morning, Autumn reflects on what happened, realizing her last wish didn't come true since it wouldn't have brought her peace. Don't know how a car crash doesn't also fit into that category since it sounds anything but peaceful, but I digress. Autumn calls Amelita to tell her their plan didn't work. Despite this, Amelita is looking on the bright side. At least Autumn knows she was right about Renzi making the website, and Renzi will still be humiliated because of the Kyra Leeds situation. And since Sean hates her, it'll take her off of Renzi's radar. Despite this, Autumn feels empty. She asks Amelita if revenge truly makes her feel better and if it makes up for the hurt Taylor caused her. Amelita says that although the revenge feels good, it'll never make up for the hurt caused. This gets Autumn thinking, and she enacts a plan. When Amelita gets to Autumn's door for the night with Kyler Leeds, nobody answers. She shouts, hoping she wasn't Renzi'd. While she does this, another car pulls up and Taylor gets out. The two girls are confused at each other's presence, with them both believing to be Autumn's +1 for the night with Kyler Leeds. The two quickly realize that Autumn set them up. Taylor admits that she's missed Amelita. Amelita doesn't believe her, citing Taylor's other friends as evidence. Taylor says that she can have other friends while still being friends with Amelita. The two essentially make up. They stand there asking each other if the other knew about Autumn's scheme. As the two discuss, another limo pulls up and a man asks if they are ready to have the night of their dreams. As the two girls ride away, Autumn gets a phone call from JJ. He invites her to hang out that night, but Autumn says there's something she has to do instead. She ends up going to Sean's house. When he sees her, he immediately tells her to leave, but she gets him to give her some time to speak. She apologizes for what she did. Sean reveals that he got Renzi to fess up about the site and that he accepts her apology. Before Autumn leaves, Sean asks her if she wants to hang out again after the following weekend, which Autumn agrees to. Autumn later receives a text from Amelita and Taylor thanking her for the night out. Kyra Leeds even sends a message saying that what she did for her friends was really cool. As Autumn walks home, she sees a man, her father, smiling at her from across the street. It's like for a moment, but she thanks him for the gift he's given her. And that's the end of the first book. Honestly, I thought the ending was really anticlimactic. Like, okay, everyone is friends again, but also nobody really sees any consequences for their actions. I mean, Renzi literally referred to Sean, her best friend, as the R slur, and he doesn't bat an eye. But I also think that has to do with how bland Sean's character is. He just exists to be a love interest, and that's about it. Also, Taylor's character arc didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, of all the people she chose to be friends with that weren't her original friend group, she chose the Mean Girls clique. Speaking of the Mean Girls clique, this book was very reminiscent of a lot of high school tropes and stereotypes, but it channeled them really well. I do wish some of the characters were fleshed out a bit more. Jack was just sort of there to make pervy misogynistic comments and be the butt of a few jokes. Also, for a story about recovering from grief, Autumn's mom and brother didn't really play that big of a role, basically being non-existent in the second half of the story. Overall, a very quick and entertaining read. I finished it in just a week, but honestly, if you have time, you could finish it in a day. Anyways, on to the next book. Book 2, Autumn's Kiss. The book opens with Autumn at a high school football game with her friend, Renzi. Yes, you heard that correctly, Renzi. Her character has done a complete 180 between the last two books. Not only is she friends with Autumn, but she's also calling out the appropriative behavior of the school's football team, which is named after a Native American tribe. Honestly, this seems more like Amelita behavior, but she's cheering on the field, so I guess somebody has to fill that role. Autumn and her friends shrug off the whole cultural appropriation conversation Renzi is having since none of the other students seem to care. We're only a few pages into the book, and Renzi is already looking like the better character. Oh, also, Taylor has also joined Autumn's friend group. Well, actually, Taylor merged her and Amelita's friend groups together to make their friend group, hence why Renzi's there. Taylor has a crush on this dude named Ryan, who's in her theater class. Everyone in Autumn's friend group discourages her from going after him, though, since he's obviously gay, mainly because he's a theater kid. Which is fair, but he could also be bi. Autumn and Sean are no longer a thing. While they are still friends, Sean made it clear he didn't want to date her or Renzi since they did some pretty messed up stuff in the last book. It doesn't really line up with the ending, but whatever. Renzi, despite being friends with Autumn, is still hoping that Sean will date her. Autumn believes she has the upper hand in their love triangle, though, but I guess we'll just have to see. Also, Bella Thorne spends 3 entire pages going over the triumphs and defeats, the epic highs and lows of high school football. Seriously, 3 pages devoted to just explaining the culture around getting ready for the games and going to them that literally has no impact on the story. It was so jarring seeing that in the beginning of the book. After the game, the group drives to a local beach. Before they leave, Jack asks Autumn why she won't get her driver's license. Autumn lies and says it's because she doesn't need to drive, but she reveals to the reader that it's actually because she's scared to drive since her father died in a car crash. At the beach, the group runs into Sean. Renzi runs up to him and gives him a hug, which of course makes Autumn jealous despite them both being in the friend zone. It's also revealed that Renzi's Halloween party is a week away, but Autumn still doesn't have a costume. She's been putting it off since Halloween was her dad's favorite holiday, and this is her first Halloween without him. Side note, I was honestly really confused as to the whole timeline of when Autumn's dad died, since in the first book they went to a winter formal, which I assumed was in December, but I think it was actually in February. Turns out Autumn's dad died in December of her sophomore year, which I didn't realize until the third book, but I'm telling you now to avoid some confusion. Anyways, Amelita arrives with the other cheerleaders. She talks about a guy named Denny McNack, who she has a crush on. While everybody is hanging out and having fun, Autumn feels truly alive. Her mind then wanders to somebody who isn't alive, her dad. And yes, that is the transition they use in the book. She goes over the journal stuff from the last book before revealing that she stopped writing in it after the friend group merged. Autumn realizes that there is still more good to be done, such as setting up Amelita and Taylor with their crushes. So she decides that she's going to write in the journal again. Autumn goes to write in the journal, but when she pulls it out, she realizes the Zimai, the symbol that connects her father's spirit to the book, is gone. Autumn texts Jenna for some advice before she tests the journal with a simple wish. I wish that when I wake up tomorrow and see Mom, she'll tell me she comes up with costumes for her, Eric, and me to wear for Halloween. The next day, Autumn receives a message from Jenna advising that Autumn go out and ask Eddie about the journal. Autumn goes downstairs and is greeted by her mother. While her mom does talk about Halloween, it's about how she's planning on going out with her friends that night. So Autumn's wish did not come true and the journal didn't work. JJ drives to Autumn's house to pick her up for school. As Autumn leaves to get into his car, her mom tells her that she should get her license so her friends won't have to drive her around. Autumn discusses a prior conversation with JJ, and he encourages her to open up to her mom about why she doesn't want to drive. Autumn is worried that doing so will end up with her in therapy. JJ tries to suggest that therapy could be good for Autumn, but she drops the conversation entirely. JJ drops off Autumn at the nursing home and waits for her outside. Autumn walks in on Eddie having an argument with another resident over an armchair. Autumn joins the argument, taking Eddie's side. The other resident's grandson is there too, and the four of them get into it. They go back and forth until Autumn realizes that her and Eddie are arguing with Kyler Leeds and his grandmother. Okay, I have a bone to pick with this. First off, the book is retconning that Kyler has a British accent, which was established in the first book, so either he doesn't have it anymore, or Autumn didn't question a British person in Florida. Obviously, it's the former, which is really annoying. Also, Kyra Leeds has a grandmother in the area. You would think that at least Amelita, a super fan, would have found out about that. Anyways, Kyler's grandmother reveals who he is, and Eddie reveals Autumn as the winner of the Night of Dreams with Kyra Leeds. Kyler reveals that he has a place in town that he rents so he can visit his grandmother, but asks Autumn not to say anything about it so that the nursing home doesn't become a paparazzi plaza. Autumn agrees to this, but later tells Jenna, who has sworn secrecy. Eddie tells Autumn that she doesn't truly understand the problem with the journal, but that if Autumn truly needs her father's help, then he will be there. She just needs to look harder. Later that night, Autumn fidgets with the cover of her journal while thinking of answers as to why it doesn't work. She realizes that the cover feels thicker than it used to, as if something is inside of it. Autumn cuts open the cover and finds what looks to be a map inside. On the back of the map is a Zimai, the same one as the one on the journal. Autumn gets her brother Eric to image search the map, but it doesn't match any online. Eric does mention that the material of the map seems to be dry erase, like it's supposed to be written on and then erased, then written on again. Autumn calls Jenna and tells her about the map. Both girls are stumped as to what its purpose is and start talking about other things. During the conversation, Autumn is drawing random things on the map with a dry erase marker. At one point, she writes Jenna's name before suddenly being teleported to Jenna's bedroom. Jenna and Autumn both scream at the sun side of each other. After Autumn explains what led to her appearing on Jenna's bed, Jenna immediately comes to the conclusion that the map brought her there. Autumn and Jenna try to figure out how the map works in order to get Autumn home. Autumn simply writes the word home and is immediately transported to her bedroom. She teleports back to Jenna's house where they do some more experiments with the map. The two discuss what purpose the map may have, but can't come to a conclusion. That night, Autumn has a dream where she's a superhero and saving people. This gives her the idea that the map is for being able to get to those in need and help them quickly. She tells Jenna this. Jenna agrees, but she tells Autumn to be careful. Autumn writes inside a car with a dog locked in on a hot day on the map and appears in just that. However, Autumn is immediately attacked by the dog. She's able to escape back home, but not without a couple of scratches. She once again calls Jenna, confused as to how she's supposed to help people if the map won't let her. Jenna reminds Autumn that her purpose with the journal was to bring peace and harmony to her own little corner of the world, and that maybe the map was trying to set a boundary of scale. Autumn asks Jenna how she's supposed to do that, and Jenna tells her she already did. Jenna was having a really stressful night until Autumn showed up in her room. Another side note, Jenna mentioned the night that she had with Autumn was the best she'd had since they last saw each other. Is she okay? Does Jenna have any good friends other than Autumn? I need to know a bit more about how she's doing. But anyways, Jenna tells Autumn that she should try helping Taylor and Amelita with their love lives since that's what she was trying to do with the journal anyways. Autumn spends the next few days visiting Jenna while trying to figure out how to use the map to help her friends. Autumn thinks that one of the reasons her father's spirit moved from the journal to the map was to help her get through her grief for Halloween, especially since it was his favorite holiday and it's the toughest time Autumn will have to go through. At lunch, it's revealed that Renzi has joined the yearbook team in order to stand out amongst other Yale applicants. Renzi wants to get in and has to look well-rounded to the Ivy League school. The topic of Renzi's party also comes up. Amelita asks Sean if Denny will be there. Sean invited Denny, but he declined since he doesn't do parties, much to Amelita's despair. Sean also mentions that it'll be hard for Amelita to run into Denny anyway since he's a year above her and he doesn't hang around school except for class and football. This gives Autumn an idea. She excuses herself from her friends and finds a hiding spot. She gets out her map and writes Denny's name. Autumn is transported to a juice bar where she sees Denny sitting at the counter. She has a brief conversation with him before leaving. She doesn't say much since she just wanted his location. She teleports back to the school, landing on the outskirts of the cafeteria. Apparently, the map makes sure to transport her to a location where nobody is looking. Autumn runs over to Amelita, telling her that Kyler Leeds was seen at the juice bar that Denny is at. They drive around looking for him before Amelita sees Denny in the window of the juice bar. She leaves Autumn so she can talk to Denny. Autumn is about to let Amelita know that she needs to head back to school for class when she gets a photo from Amelita of her and Denny in his car on their way back. A few hours later, Amelita texts Autumn and Taylor, telling them that she's already been asked by Denny to watch him play football at an away game. Taylor laments to Autumn that she wishes Ryan would ask her out. Autumn once again tells Taylor that she's pretty sure Ryan is gay. Taylor assures her that he's straight and invites Autumn to watch the rehearsal to see for herself. Yeah, the whole Ryan is gay thing is a bit throughout this entire book and got old after the first time. The blatant bi, pan, queer, whatever erasure is so annoying. This book was written in 2015, so some of those labels, especially bi, were a stretch for the time. Bella Thorne herself, though not out at the time of this book being written, identifies as pansexual, so I find it shocking that she didn't even consider bi as an option throughout the book. Maybe it's an editorial thing, but it's still annoying. Anyways, Autumn goes to the rehearsal and understands Taylor's attraction to Ryan when he's in character, playing the stereotypical bad boy. However, as soon as he's out of character, to quote the book, he goes from intense and controlled to bouncy and theatrical, and his speaking voice goes up 3 octaves. Autumn mentions that she's trying not to stereotype Ryan, but all the signs are there. She also notices that the guy sitting next to her in the theater is paying a lot of attention to Taylor when she's on stage. He could potentially be a secret admirer. Autumn talks to him and he reveals that he's does lighting for the show. When Autumn asks him about Taylor, he simply says that she's incredible. Autumn tells him that she's Taylor's friend and that if he likes her, he should talk to her. Taylor and Ryan come over and Autumn introduces him to the lighting guy, Leo. Leo says hi to them but then abruptly leaves. The next morning before class, Autumn writes Leo's name on her map. She asks Leo why he bolted the day before, and Leo tells her that talking to Taylor makes him nervous. Autumn suggests that he try to talk to Taylor outside of theater in a different environment. Renzi's Halloween party. Autumn tells him to dress up as the Phantom from Phantom of the Opera since that's Taylor's favorite musical. Nothing really notable happens for a while, but at one point Bella Thorne uses the term Yelped instead of Googled, and it really threw me off. Anyways, Halloween comes up and Autumn is hopeful that it's the night her and Sean get back together. Autumn runs into him while setting up for the party and the two start talking. Renzi interrupts him, saying that if Autumn is going to be dressed up as a zombie bride, that she's going to need a veil, and sends Autumn to her room and away from Sean to get one. As Autumn looks for the veil, Renzi's screensaver on her laptop catches her eye. It's a photo slideshow starting with photos of them and their friends. However, after a while, a bunch of photos of Sean pop up. Photos Sean sent Autumn over the summer with some rather flirtatious texts. Autumn spirals, worrying that Sean was also flirting with Renzi. Autumn decides to get to the bottom of it. When talking to Renzi, she casually inquires about the photos. Renzi says that this was the first summer her and Sean spent without each other, and him texting her made her feel like she was traveling with him. She also mentions that the trip gave Sean a chance to truly miss her and that things have felt different between them since he got back. She's hoping that means Sean will ask her out soon. Autumn gets nervous because that's exactly how she feels about Sean as well. While Autumn wants to talk to Sean about the photo situation, she recognizes that the party isn't the right place. Instead, she decides to focus on helping her friends. Autumn tries to find Amelita, but instead runs into Jack, who is watching Carrie dance with a random football player in order to make JJ jealous. Jack laments that he wishes Carrie would dance with him, even just to get JJ's attention. Autumn then spots Leo lurking in a corner watching Taylor. She goes over to him and tells him that he has to actually talk to Taylor. She tells him to talk to her about theater stuff and sends him over to her where the two hit it off. They end up hanging for a good couple of hours. Later into the party, everyone decides to play 7 Minutes in Heaven. Leo and Taylor go in at one point. Later, Autumn and Leo are picked to go in together, and Leo reveals that he kissed Taylor during their round. JJ and Autumn are picked to go in together at one point. Autumn vents to him about the Sean situation, but before she finishes, JJ kisses her. Autumn is surprised despite the fact that JJ asked her out in the last book. JJ gives this little speech about how Autumn deserves better than Sean, and the two kiss again. Before their 7 minutes are up, JJ tells her that he knows she likes Sean, but that she should go for him while he's available, since he won't wait on her forever. The romance stuff in this book is driving me crazy. Let's break it down. Autumn and Renzi like Sean, but Sean and JJ like Autumn, but Carrie likes JJ, but JJ doesn't necessarily like her back, and Jack also likes Carrie. I feel like I'm going insane. After the party, Autumn spends the night at Taylor's house. Taylor is raving about Leo and even mentions how great of a kisser he is. Taylor says that whatever she had with Ryan wasn't going anywhere and that Leo seems to just get her. The next morning, Taylor and Autumn call Amelita since she and Denny never showed up to Renzi's party. Amelita answers saying that Denny didn't feel like going out, so the two just stayed in and hung out. Amelita quickly hangs up, saying she and Denny are watching football. The next morning, JJ picks up Autumn. They talk about what happened at the party, with Autumn telling him that she can't say yes or no to being with him since she herself doesn't know her answer. JJ is fine with this, telling her that he doesn't want to pressure her into anything. At school, Amelita is once again nowhere to be found, ditching her friends to be with Denny. Leo talks with Taylor, but panics when she asks him what he did after the party since it might sound lame. Autumn agrees to meet Leo in between classes in order to give him some advice, but he doesn't show. Autumn pulls out her map and writes down his name. She appears in the boys' locker room, so she ducks behind some laundry until the coast is clear, then gets up to leave. However, somebody is still in the locker room. Sean. He asks her what she's doing there. She tells him that she's meeting somebody. She slips and Sean catches her, with his arms wrapped around her. He tells her that he's missed this. Before anything can happen between them, however, footsteps start approaching and Autumn bolts. Autumn thinks about how being with Sean felt so much better than being with JJ, but also how JJ seems to be treating her better. She decides that things are too complicated between her and Sean, but instead of giving up, she has to meet him one-on-one to talk things out. At lunch, Sean keeps bringing up the towel incident in subtle ways to, I guess, flirt with Autumn? I don't know. It seems more annoying than anything, especially since it's in front of all their friends. Well, except Amelita, who has once again gone off to hang out with Denny. After lunch, Autumn and Sean schedule time to talk that Saturday. Leo runs up to Autumn and says that he waited for as long as he could to talk to her. It turns out that Autumn had the wrong location, and that's why they missed each other. The night before meeting with Sean, Autumn's entire friend group hangs out. At one point, Renzi and Sean go off on their own and don't come back, much to Autumn's dismay. The next day, Sean picks up Autumn and drives her to the lake. Every time Autumn tries to talk to him, he tells her to wait. Once they're alone and have a picnic set up, Autumn starts asking Sean why he and Renzi disappeared the night before. Sean says it was to tell Renzi what he was planning on doing with Autumn, and then he kisses her. Autumn, too smitten to bother with the rest of the conversation, kisses him back. On Monday, Autumn tells JJ that she and Sean are officially a couple. JJ, although not ecstatic, is fine with it since he just wants Autumn to be happy. At school, Renzi pulls Autumn aside. To Autumn's surprise, Renzi apologizes to her, saying she misread the relationship between herself and Sean. Their attention is quickly turned to Amelita, who is sitting with Denny and isn't wearing any makeup, something very out of character for her. At lunch, the friend group talks about Amelita's personality change. The guys bring up how the girls in the group have all changed things about themselves for guys, as well as how guys changed things for them. Taylor, however, mentions that Leo didn't have to change for her since they already had the same interests. The irony of this statement makes Autumn feel guilty. After 3 days of getting the cold shoulder from Amelita, Autumn decides to visit her. She writes Amelita's name on the map and confronts her, telling her that she's letting Denny control her. Amelita is having none of it, though, and makes Autumn leave. Amelita basically ices Autumn out of her life after this. While JJ and Taylor actively get texts from Amelita, they still never really see her. It's Thanksgiving break, and JJ is the only person in Autumn's friend group also staying home for the holiday. Autumn's mom forces her to take driving lessons despite her worries in relation to her dad's death. The driving lessons go moderately well, though Autumn has to bring JJ in as moral support. On Thanksgiving, Autumn is depressed since this is the first time she celebrated it without her father. To cheer herself up, she uses the map to take her to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. She appears on a float where Kyler Leeds is singing. He recognizes Autumn as she does some crowd work before his number finishes, and she quickly uses the map to get home. Before you ask if anybody saw her, the answer is no. The cameras for the parade had moved on to another float by the time Autumn got there. While the family is cooking dinner, Autumn says that they should make boniatillo, the meal she was making when she found out her dad died. Making the meal is a way for them to celebrate him in their own special way. That afternoon, Autumn and her mom go to pick up Eddie for dinner. With Autumn in the driver's seat, she accidentally rear ends a car while trying to park. The driver happened to be in the car, and surprise, it's Kyler Leeds. He asked Autumn how she got back home so quickly since he had a private jet and could barely make it back there in time. Autumn can't tell him the truth since her mom is with her. He shrugs off the float thing and the rear end thing off, the latter being because there wasn't any damage done. At Thanksgiving dinner, Autumn's family shares different stories about her dad. It's something they've never really been able to do before, and it shows how far they've come in their recovery process. Afterwards, Autumn and Eddie have a brief conversation about the map and how Autumn's dad is proud of her for spreading good with it. Later in the break, Autumn is missing Sean. She decides to use the map to see him. She's transported to a closet in whatever place he's staying in. She hears kissing noises and looks through the slats in the closet door. She sees Sean and Renzi making out. Autumn immediately teleports home and cries herself to sleep. The next day, JJ calls Autumn. He can tell that she's distressed, so he goes over to her house. Autumn tells JJ that Sean cheated on her. She lies and says that Sean admitted to cheating, and that's how she knows he did it, which is not totally going to bite her in the ass later. To cheer Autumn up, JJ decides to take her on a road trip to different restaurants in the area. After hitting an ice cream place at the end of the day, the two go for a walk on the beach. Autumn holds JJ's hand, but he tells her he doesn't want her to be into him solely because she's upset with Sean. Autumn tells him that what Sean did showed her what she was missing out on and that she deserved better. She then kisses JJ. After their date, Autumn struggles with her feelings towards JJ, unsure if she loves him or not, since her feelings aren't as intense with him as they were with Sean. The first morning back from break, JJ sends Sean to pick up Autumn so they can talk things out. He asks her why exactly she broke up with him. She tells him that she knows he cheated on her, and he admits that he and Renzi got drunk and hooked up. He also says that he regretted it so much that he threw up the next morning. He berates Autumn, telling her that she shouldn't have blocked his number and let him talk to her. Sean, once again, is painting Autumn as the bad guy for a situation she had some justification in, just like the flash drive situation in the last book. As Sean leaves, Autumn realizes that it's still Sean she loves and not JJ. She can't break up with JJ though, since she just told him she wasn't into Sean. Plus, there's a huge chance Sean wouldn't want to get back together with her anyways. Autumn has been pretty unlikable throughout the book, but damn, this whole JJ situation has been awful to read through. Same with Sean, who I now officially hate. Anyways, Renzi pulls Autumn aside at school and apologizes not for hooking up with Sean, but for hurting her feelings by hooking up with Sean. Throughout the school day, Autumn quickly grows tired of JJ and the fact that he feels like he has to be touching her at every moment, like holding hands or wrapping an arm around her. She's tired of faking her feelings for JJ, so she decides to start volunteering at Century Acres to have a valid excuse to avoid him. Leo texts Autumn and asks for some help with Taylor. Autumn tells him she's busy, but that he should be fine since they've been together for so long. Honestly, I agree. They've been together for a month now. Surely Leo knows enough about her to carry a conversation. A week or so later, Renzi reveals that she and Sean are officially dating. Another week later, Autumn is leaving Century Acres when she runs into an enraged Taylor, who tells Autumn that Leo broke up with her because he couldn't keep up with his act anymore. She's furious that Autumn played her, especially since Ryan, her crush from the beginning of the book, liked her before she started going out with Leo. She missed her shot with him since he's now dating someone else. After Taylor leaves, Kyler Leeds gives Autumn's attention because, of course, he's here. Kyler takes Autumn to the roof of Century Acres. They stargaze a bit before he kisses Autumn. She pulls away, saying that she is a boyfriend. Kyler says that's fine since he has multiple girlfriends. Autumn is taken aback by this and tells him that her life is too complicated to be kissing a guy with multiple girlfriends. Kyler asks her what's so complicated, and she tells him everything we've discussed so far, excluding the map. He tells her the best thing she can do is simply apologize to her friends. When Autumn gets home, JJ is waiting for her in her driveway. He breaks up with her since he knows she doesn't actually have feelings for him. With that, Autumn has 0 friends left at Aventura. She asks the map what she's doing wrong before deciding to leave it be for a while. Autumn goes to the Christmas party at Century Acres where the residents are happy to see her. Kyler Leeds' grandma hands Autumn a gift from Kyler. It's a flash drive with personalized videos for Autumn's former friends. In each video, Kyler invites them to a New Year's Eve party at Autumn's house to patch things up. Autumn sends the videos to her friends. Amelita is surprisingly the first to call back. She tells Autumn she broke up with Denny because of how controlling he was, but was too stubborn to tell Autumn. Next call is to Taylor, who forgives Autumn but tells her to stay out of her love life. Renzi calls Autumn next and tells her that Sean won't show her his video. She asks Autumn if she's trying to get him back. While Autumn is still in love with Sean, she's not going to go after him when he's not available. Autumn's party rolls around relatively quickly, with Amelita and Taylor helping set the whole thing up. At the party, Autumn talks to Sean. He says that if Autumn told him how she was feeling, even while he's with Renzi, he would get back together with her in a heartbeat. Autumn calls Sean out for not being able to pick between her and Renzi, how he led them both on, and how he's not being fair to Renzi now that they're together. I'm glad somebody finally called Sean out on his bullshit. JJ enters the party late. He and Autumn talk briefly. They're going to be friends again, but JJ says they probably won't be as close as they used to be. The party rages on, and the book ends with Autumn going to see Kyra Leeds, writing his name on her map. That was such a downgrade from the first book. First off, the guy drama was just unbearable. I don't really favor JJ or Sean, and I thought the whole thing between them was just so tedious. Also, adding Kyler to the mix made things even worse. Making him a side character was already a lot, especially since he would really only come in to move the plot forward and then leave. Also, the sidelining of Amelita was really upsetting to me. I also didn't like how her relationship issue was just solved off book. We don't see Amelita come to the realization that Denny is controlling her. We just see her denying it and then 3 chapters later saying that she broke up with him. Amelita is such a strong character and it sucks to see her sidelined throughout the book. But with all that being said, let's get into the final book of this trilogy. Book 3, Autumn's Wish. We surprisingly don't start where the last book left off. Instead, we jump forward to Autumn's senior year. The book starts with Autumn writing a college essay about her dead dad, but it quickly spirals into her anxieties about college and being separated from her friends. Autumn and her friends are doing essay practice. JJ's there with his girlfriend, Carrie. Autumn's jealous of her, but she's also aware that she already had her chance with JJ. Amelita has to leave to get ready for a party hosted by a guy named Xander. We don't learn much about him except that Autumn and Taylor don't like him. Speaking of learning things, we also learn that Autumn got her driver's license. She doesn't have a car though and can only drive her mom's when she's not using it. She asks JJ for a ride home, but despite them being friends again, he barely speaks to her, much less gives her a ride. When Autumn gets home, she reflects on how much her life is changing, such as her brother getting taller and her mom getting busier, and how soon her friends will be off at college without her. So yeah, less than 15 pages in and we're really hammering in the theme of change. Autumn vents her worries to Jenna and then plans to use the map to see her. However, when Autumn writes Jenna's name on the map, nothing happens. Autumn turns the map over to see that the Zimmy is gone, just like what happened with her journal in the last book. She decides that the best course of action is to talk to Eddie at Century Acres. Autumn gives Eddie the map, and Eddie tells her that the Zimmy is still there, though it is much fainter and can only be seen in a certain light. She tells Autumn that there's just enough of her father's magic within it to lead her to his next gift. Autumn writes "my dad's next gift" onto the map and is transported across the room to Eddie's nightstand. She opens a drawer that is empty except for a necklace with a locket engraved with the Zimmy. Inside the locket is an adjustable calendar, which Autumn immediately clocks as a time travel device, allowing her to travel to any date she sets in it. She immediately sets the calendar to the day her dad died, but nothing happens. Autumn calls Jenna and tells her about the locket that doesn't work. Thankfully, Jenna remembers the magic rules from the first book, that the past can't be changed. Jenna suggests that instead of trying to change the past, Autumn can change the future. She can go forward, see what's wrong, and try to prevent it in the present. Autumn decides to test this out, traveling 3 years into the future. As soon as Autumn appears in the future, somebody's hand phases right through her face. She's basically a ghost. Autumn realizes that she's at a wedding and starts to panic, thinking that the wedding is hers, but she quickly realizes that the wedding is actually her mother's. This makes Autumn extremely upset, mainly because of her father. She also thinks that her future stepdad is ugly, so there's that too. However, Autumn is relieved when she sees her friends sitting at a table together. They're talking about their lives and we get an update on everybody. Renzi's at the top of her class at Stanford, but is still letting Sean play her. Sean has horrible grades and basically no future. Amelita is an alcoholic. Carrie has trapped JJ in a relationship by getting pregnant, and Taylor is dating a guy named Drew, who she met a few months into her senior year, so sometime soon in the present. A quick note is that in between books, it was retconned that Renzi wanted to go to Stanford and not Yale, unless they mentioned something about it in a one-off line, but I doubt it since I didn't note it down. Anyways, the biggest character change comes from Jack, who not only has a glow-up, but also has a boyfriend. This was actually foreshadowed in the last book. Basically, Jack was constantly throwing weird jealous looks towards any of the girls JJ was dating, whether it be Carrie or Autumn. I got it pretty quickly, and what can I say? I love being right. Although, it still doesn't excuse all the gross misogynistic stuff he's said in the past 2 books. Autumn in the future is quite different as well. She's pale and unkempt. She's apparently panicked about everyone leaving for college and completely shut down. Her friends are only at the wedding because Autumn's mom thought seeing them would help her get out of her funk. Autumn travels back to the present just a second after she left. She decides her first course of action is to make herself the perfect college candidate so she won't end up panicking about school. Her curiosity gets the better of her, and she is about to see if this change in mindset has already impacted her future. However, just as she's about to use the locket, she notices that one of the numbers has changed from a 10 to a 9. This number is the only one that can't be adjusted. Autumn realizes that it's a countdown and that she has a limited number of time jumps. She decides to wait to use another one until she's made an actual effort to change the future. At school, Autumn asks her friends what extracurriculars she should do to look good for colleges. She would go back to volunteering at Century Acres, but future deadbeat Autumn worked there, so she's trying to avoid it. Carrie suggests to Autumn that she join the senior social committee at their school. Despite not liking Carrie, Autumn agrees anyways. She also plunges herself into her academics and SATs for the next few weeks. After taking the SAT, Autumn goes to her mom's dog rescue center. She's having fun with the dogs until she runs into the man she saw her mom eventually marry in the future. She decides to lie to him and tell him there are fleas, causing him to leave and hopefully never meet her mom. Autumn decides to travel to the future to see if it worked. The first thing Autumn sees in this new timeline is herself, who looks amazing, much better than the previous timeline's Autumn. She also sees her mom and notices that she doesn't have a wedding ring on. For the other characters, Amelita's still an alcoholic, Renzi is still a girl boss, Taylor's there too, and JJ and Carrie have 2 kids. Sean has the worst of it, with him getting paralyzed from the waist down and in a coma after a football match. Autumn is mortified and realizes she still has things to fix. She decides that she needs to let the guy from the first timeline meet her mom to make things good again, but he's already long gone. Autumn decides that the main thing she needs to focus on is getting Sean to go to the college that's not FSU, since that's the school he was playing at when he got hurt. She also has to break up JJ and Carrie. Autumn goes to the senior social committee and comes up with an idea for the Halloween dance. The computer will pair people up into couples like a matchmaker called Scare Pairs. She's hoping it'll allow Carrie and JJ to find other people. At lunch, Sean reveals that a scout from FSU is coming to watch him play that weekend. Autumn tries to advise against it, but there's no realistic reason she can give him as to why he shouldn't go. Instead, she comes up with a plan. The door to her attic is shut. It can only be opened from the inside. She just needs to trap Sean long enough for him to miss the scout. I would feel bad that Sean is going to miss out on such a huge opportunity, but I hate him, so no hard feelings. Anyways, right before the game, Autumn asks Sean to come over and help her since her dog is stuck in the attic. While Sean isn't paying attention, she takes his phone and places it on the floor as if it fell out of his pocket. While the two are in the attic, Autumn accidentally closes the door, locking them both in. By the time Autumn's brother gets home and lets them out, it's too late and Sean misses the scout. Autumn decides to go 4 years into the future to see if her scheming paid off. First thing she sees is Sean running around, so at least that worked. It's also revealed that Amelita is in her 3rd round of rehab, so yeah, still an alcoholic. JJ has a toddler with, you'll never guess, Carrie. Future JJ does mention a guy named Keith Harrington that Carrie previously showed interest in. Autumn decides that she needs to pair Keith and Carrie at the Halloween dance in order to help JJ beat the teen dad allegations. Future Jack also reveals that he used to have a crush on a guy named Tom Watson, so Autumn decides to pair them up too. Future JJ also says that he has a crush on someone named Mariah Amhari, so another scare pair. Autumn also finds her mom wants to get married to the guy from the first time jump, Glenn. They also have a kid together with another on the way. Autumn jumps back to the present. After missing the football game, Sean is pissed. He calls Autumn out in front of everybody at the after party. The next morning, Autumn's mom reveals that she's made a new friend, Glenn. She says that they're just friends, but of course Autumn knows that eventually that won't be true. She realizes that instead of just, I don't know, letting her mom move on and be happy, she has to get rid of Glenn again. At school, Autumn's history teacher finds her a private tutor. To Autumn's surprise, it's JJ. The two haven't been alone since their breakup, so they're finally able to talk things through and make up. JJ agrees to tutor Autumn after her senior social committee meetings every day. He also decides to keep this from Carrie, saying it'll only make her jealous, and I mean, yeah, he and Autumn were in a relationship less than a year ago, so I'd say that's grounds for jealousy. Anyways, the two study, Autumn realizes that she might still have feelings for JJ. She even debates putting them as a couple for the Halloween dance. Before she makes any rash decisions, she decides to go 6 years into the future and see what her relationship with JJ is like. The first thing to note is that we see future Jenna for the first time in this timeline. She's married, which is cool. The other big change in this timeline is JJ. Not only is he childless, he's also not with Carrie. Instead, he's with Autumn. He ends up proposing to her. Future Autumn says yes to the engagement before present Autumn is sent back to her time. Autumn realizes that she's in love with JJ for real this time. She immediately wants to confess her feelings to him, but comes to the conclusion that she should let the relationship happen naturally so as to not change the future too much. Halloween dance is right around the corner and the social committee is making their scare pair cards. Quick note, for some reason Bella Thorne describes the size of the cards as about the size of an iPhone 6 Plus, which is definitely an interesting choice to say the least. Autumn's plan to swap around the cards gets a lot harder when Carrie is matched with JJ, making it so she'll notice when their cards are switched. Thankfully, Carrie asks if she can swap matches with Mariah Amhari, who's paired with Keith Harrington. Amelita is paired with Xander, the party guy she's been hanging out with that Autumn and Taylor don't like. She just swore him off since he was getting her hooked on drinking. Autumn is paired with Sean, which is awful since he still hates her from the attic incident.
While everyone is distracted with planning, Autumn takes the envelopes of the pairs she wants to switch. When she gets home, Autumn gets her brother to print the new pair's cards. There are some people she didn't account for, such as Tom Watson's pair, but she just shrugs it off. Autumn and Taylor go to see a play at a community college. Autumn finds out that Drew, future Taylor's boyfriend, is the male lead. Autumn encourages Taylor to talk to him after the show. The two immediately hit it off at the stage door, with Drew agreeing to go to the Halloween dance the following night. The next day, Autumn is greeted by her mom, who's more chipper than usual after a coffee outing with Glenn. That night, while the senior social committee is setting up for the dance, Autumn puts in the new pair she made. JJ comes in and is paired with Mariah. Carrie doesn't mind since she wanted to swap with Mariah for Keith anyway. Sean comes in and is appalled that he's paired with Autumn. He just walks past her and into the dance. Tom comes up to the card table, confused as to why some other guy has his name on their card when he's paired with Jack. He also mentions that he thinks Jack is cute and would give him a shot. Jack comes in and gets his scare pair card. When he sees that he's matched with another dude, he blows up, thinking it's some kind of joke. He quickly leaves the dance. I think it's important to note Autumn's ignorance in this whole situation. Obviously, Autumn isn't gay and thus has no experience with the closet. She doesn't know that she can't just make Jack be himself. It's so much more complex than that. I mean, does he even know that he's gay at this point, or did his future self realize his crush in retrospect? It's too much, and Autumn pressuring him out in the open like this was such a wild move. Anyways, Carrie and Keith are hitting it off, much to JJ's dismay. He ends up leaving the dance. Autumn leaves to comfort him. The two talk, but then Autumn impulsively kisses him. This causes JJ to go off on Autumn, saying he can't trust her after the time they were together and that he won't let her play with his feelings. He storms off. Autumn, left alone, decides to check out what the future looks like in 10 years to make sure she didn't mess up too much. Autumn arrives at her future high school reunion. Jack is in a relationship with a random woman and has a kid, so yeah, Autumn totally fucks up. Drew died in a car accident, leaving Taylor widowed. Future Autumn went emo after her grandma died during Thanksgiving in her senior year, so like a month away from present day. JJ became a hermit, and Sean is still an asshole. Oh, and Amelita is still an alcoholic. So yeah, Autumn still has shit to fix. The day after the dance, Autumn lists out everything she needs to change, deciding that saving Eddie will be her first priority. She goes out and buys as much elderly safety stuff as she can find and brings it to Eddie at Century Acres. Eddie clocks that something is up and tells Autumn not to bother changing her fate since everybody has to go someday. She's already lived a long life. Autumn should focus her energy elsewhere, mainly with her friends. Autumn reluctantly agrees. While she's returning the stuff she bought, she gets a text from Rinsey. It's a photo of Amelita in a very revealing position. Rinsey tells Autumn that the photo is spread like wildfire throughout the school. Autumn rushes to Amelita's house to check up on her. Amelita reveals that she drunkenly texted the photo to Xander and that it spread from there. When Autumn gets to school, Carrie is waiting on her. She tells Autumn that she knows about the kiss between her and JJ and that JJ isn't allowed to talk to her again. She also kicks Autumn off of the senior social committee. Jack is also avoiding Autumn after his whole freak out at the dance. Since Taylor eats lunch with Drew off campus and Amelita is avoiding school, Autumn's basically alone. This is the status quo for about the next 3 weeks. One night, Autumn's mom takes the family out to dinner to introduce him to Glenn. Eric's happy that his mom is happy, but Autumn is still appalled. She makes it her goal for the night to make him so miserable he has to leave, despite seeing for herself how happy he makes her mom in the future. At one point, Autumn's mom gets tired of her being a brat and takes Autumn aside. Autumn goes off on how boring Glenn is compared to her dad and that her mom deserves better. Somehow, this miraculously convinces her mom to tell Glenn to go home. After the dinner, Autumn jumps 3 years into the future, the same day as her mom's supposed future wedding, and sees the results of her handiwork. However, instead of appearing at the wedding, she appears in a mental hospital alongside Amelita, Taylor, and Rinsey. Rinsey apparently had a huge breakdown at Stanford and tried to off herself, hence the hospital. Surprisingly, Amelita has her shit together in this timeline. She gives some advice to Rinsey using the incident with her photo as an example of how she was able to better herself. Also, Drew recently died from cancer. This dude's timeline mortality rate is awful. Autumn comes back to the present and decides to deal with the Rinsey situation first. She's going to keep Rinsey from going to Stanford. Autumn types up, prints, and mails a letter to Stanford where she pretends to be Rinsey wanting to withdraw her application. I think it's weird how Autumn ignores literally every other timeline where Rinsey is successful at Stanford, but whatever. Autumn also goes to Amelita's house and gives her a pep talk to get her out of her funk. It works, and Amelita agrees to start going back to school. The next day, she manages to keep her head held high despite the ridicule. She also tells Autumn that she knows about the JJ situation since he told her about it. She advises that Autumn be patient since she already had her shot with him. However, Autumn knows that Carrie will eventually trap JJ in a relationship, so she spends her entire Thanksgiving break scheming. She also spends the break reminiscing over how her and JJ got together that same time last year. She decides on a whim to go to his house despite him making it very clear he wanted her out of his life. Before Autumn makes it to JJ's house, she hears him and Carrie shouting outside. Autumn hides in some bushes in order to eavesdrop. Apparently, Carrie had been cheating on JJ with Keith Harrington since the Halloween dance. Before Autumn can listen some more, she gets bit by a mosquito. She shouts in pain, alerting JJ and Carrie to her presence. JJ kicks out both girls. Amelita tells Autumn what happened. Amelita is annoyed since she told Autumn to leave JJ alone. Jenna, on the other hand, tells Autumn that she needs to make a big moment with JJ, like Lloyd Dobler with his boombox and say anything. Autumn takes this literally, taking a Bluetooth speaker and deciding to play the song Kyra Leeds wrote about her and JJ to convince him to give her another shot. While looking for JJ, Autumn catches Jack and Tom making out. Jack freaks out and makes Autumn swear to not tell anybody he's gay. Autumn agrees, but she doesn't understand why he wouldn't want to be out when their friends wouldn't care. As a lesbian, I've noticed that there's this straight savior fantasy in the media and in real life. A lot of straight people don't understand why people don't want to be out, since theoretically they would be happier being their truest selves. Of course, they don't take into account their family lives or how people outside of their social circle will react. Reminds me of Love Simon, how his friends didn't care that his sexuality was being blackmailed when he could have just told them, and they wouldn't have cared. Some people just aren't ready to have that label attached to themselves, and that's okay. Anyways, seeing Jack embrace his sexuality, even in private, makes Autumn hopeful for the future. She decides to do another 3-year time jump. She immediately sees her future self and her friends hanging out on a beach together. Autumn's relieved that she'll end up rekindling her friendships with JJ and Son. Future Autumn also mentions that she wants to stay in school and get a PhD in psychology so she can continue to help people. Jack has a new boyfriend in this timeline, this one named Ben. Amelita is now a hotel management major and has moved on completely from the photo situation. Drew's alive and dating Taylor. Lindsay also has a boyfriend and is going to a more laid-back law school. Sean is Sean. JJ, however, is stuck in a relationship with a possessing and controlling girlfriend who he only stays with because he knows she won't cheat on him. After what happened with Autumn and Carrie, that's all he really looks for. Oh, and also Taylor gets a phone call that Drew actually died in a plane crash before Autumn jumps back to the present. So, yeah, we're at a streak of 3 for Drew deaths. Anyway, the next week at school, Renzi is going berserk. Stanford called her about the letter Autumn sent, and she wants to know who sent it since she doesn't know. However, she drops it pretty fast, and she could have been sent by literally anybody, and Stanford told her that she should be expecting good news. My question is, why did the last timeline show Renzi going to a different law school when Autumn's alteration with the resignation letter didn't change Renzi going to Stanford? I mean, maybe it's the butterfly effect or some other time travel bullshit, but it's still weird as hell. Anyways, Autumn realizes that she can't talk Renzi out of Stanford, but she does make Renzi promise to reach out if she's ever struggling. Renzi also tells Autumn that Sean got a full ride and football scholarship from a Division II school. He's still mad at Autumn, but he's starting to get over it. Autumn makes plans to go to a football game for their school. She learns that Tom is doing the music for the AV group at the game and asks him to help her with her Lloyd Dobler moment. Mind you, she gets Tom's number by telling Jack that he owes her for keeping his sexuality a secret. Like, bestie, he doesn't owe you shit. It's just common decency to keep that a secret because it's not your place to say anything. God, this story arc is driving me crazy. Anyways, at halftime, Autumn goes to the AV booth and gets mic'd up. After the marching band plays, Autumn pops up on the Jumbotron. She sings the Kyra Leeds song, which is extremely off-key and off-tempo. She trips over herself several times, making a fool of herself. She ends up making it to JJ and professing her love to him. She asks him for a second chance and he rejects her. He literally just says no and leaves. It's so fucking funny. Autumn, embarrassed and wanting to be literally anywhere else, sets a random date in her locket and goes 15 years into the future. Honestly, what an impulsive waste of a time jump. She didn't even change anything before going. Anyways, Autumn appears in a condo belonging to her mom. Future Autumn has had plastic surgery and implants from head to toe. She'd married Kyra Leeds and had a kid with him, however he cheats on her all the time. Autumn justifies it since he's a superstar, but her mom thinks she deserves better. Autumn's mom is also miserable, leaving alone and refusing to find love. Autumn goes back to the present and to her house. She tries to get her mom to give Glenn another chance, but her mom says the Glenn chapter of her life is over. Autumn decides to make it her mission to let her mom move on and be happy with Glenn. Since Glenn and Autumn's mom met at Trader Joe's, she decides to start there. She looks for him there every day after school. After 2 weeks of this, the manager goes up to her and asks why she's always there. Autumn explains her plan to him and he agrees to help her. You might be wondering why you would help a random stranger, but Autumn isn't technically a stranger. She's been going viral for her awful confession to JJ and the manager recognized her. I honestly wonder if anybody has put together that Autumn is also the person who won the Night of Dreams with Kyra Leeds. I mean, she was announced as a winner on national television, so I'm sure some internet sleuth put it together, which probably also made the video a million times funnier. Anyway, he tells his employees to keep an eye out for a man with Glenn's description and to contact Autumn if they see him. After a few days, Autumn gets a text saying that Glenn is at Trader Joe's. She rushes over there, stopping him in the checkout line. She confesses to telling her mom to stay away from him, but she's changed her mind. Glenn agrees to try again, but Autumn tells him to wait until she's thought of a romantic gesture that her mom can't say no to. Autumn gets a call from Kyra Leeds, who says her video put his song back on the charts. He offers a date night to thank her, but she turns him down. Instead, she asks if he can help her with her mom and Glenn's date night. Kyla agrees, booking 2 hotel rooms at a resort for the future couple for one night before Christmas. A week later, Glenn comes to the door of Autumn's house in a full tux to pick up her mom. Autumn's mom is wary of it at first, but Autumn tells her that she deserves to be happy even if it means being with Glenn. That night, Autumn has a conversation with Eddie. They both agree that Autumn's father would be happy that his wife is happy, even if it means being with another man. Autumn decides to travel to when the future wedding is supposed to take place once more. The wedding's on once again, and future Autumn makes a toast. Her mom and friends all look happy, even Drew. The only person missing is JJ. When Autumn comes back to the present with Eddie, she laments that she's tried everything to make things right with JJ. She's frustrated that nothing seems to be working. Eddie tells her that she should try doing nothing and just letting things play out. Autumn promises to take the advice, putting her locket away despite having one jump left. She's done obsessing over what could happen and decides to fully live in the present. Autumn's mom holds a New Year's Eve party. All of Autumn's friends are there except JJ. They all swear to keep in touch in college. At midnight, Autumn's mom makes an announcement. Music starts playing, the cover lead song Autumn attempted to perform at the football game, and JJ comes in singing. Unlike Autumn, his confession is on key and sounds amazing. After the song, the two kiss and profess their love for each other. He also asks Autumn to the prom, which she agrees to. After the party, Autumn decides to use her final jump to see their prom night. She sees Jack and Tom holding hands and is ecstatic to see Jack happily out. Amelita also has a new boyfriend, but it's someone we've literally never heard about. Autumn and JJ are going steady. While they're both going to separate colleges, they'll both be in Boston, so they'll still be close. Autumn hears a voice calling her name. She thinks nothing of it, as doing this for her future self. However, future Autumn doesn't seem to acknowledge it. The voice gets closer until it's right behind Autumn. She realizes that the voice belongs to her dad. He tells her he's proud of her and that she's grown up. He tells her that she doesn't need him anymore, but although he won't be sending her any more gifts, he'll always be with her. And that concludes the Autumn Falls trilogy. Before I get my thoughts on the series as a whole, I want to talk about my thoughts solely for this book. Truly, the middle part with all the relationship drama was the hardest part to get through. The beginning and end, however, were hard for me to put down. The time travel structure of Autumn being in the present one chapter and the future the next also made the book a fun read. I didn't want to put the book down because I want to see either how Autumn would change the future or how those changes would impact the future. I was also happy to see there was a lot less Kyra Leeds in this book, and he was painted as more of a douche. I mean, he still served as a plot device, but it wasn't as bad as the last book. I already talked at length about how much I hate how Jack's storyline was handled. I'm honestly surprised at how badly it ended up, though, since Bella Thorne herself was a part of the LGBTQ community. I don't know if she was out when this book was published, but still you would think she would have some sort of semblance of respect for telling this story. Unless she herself didn't know about her sexuality, then I could give her a slide. Or if it was some editorial meddling, which could also be true seeing as this was a book that appeared in multiple Scholastic book fairs. I want to close off with a loaded question. Does Autumn's father only send her gifts, or does he give her brother stuff too? I mean, Eric is about to be the same age Autumn was when she got the journal, so maybe his will start then. If not, that would suck for him. Their dad is definitely playing favorites even in the afterlife. Anyways, here are my final thoughts on the trilogy as a whole. I'm going to start with the negatives and make my way to the positives. First off, I hated how Amelita went from a super strong, confident character in the first book to a PSA in the other two. She was sidelined in the second book to show off toxic relationships, and her entire alcoholism storyline was just a waste in the third book. We never know why exactly Amelita drinks so much. It's implied that it's just a party, but then why does she get so dependent on it in the future timelines? Not only was she sidelined, but the arcs she was sidelined for weren't strong enough to justify it. Speaking of sidelined characters, we have Jenna. In case you forgot, since I barely mentioned her in the last book, Jenna is Autumn's best friend from before she moved, as well as her primary confidant. Jenna serves mainly as an expedition dump and to move the plot forward, like a likable Kyra Leeds. I don't really know much about her, except she's on the track team and has a boyfriend. She's very present throughout the books, and she's always texting or calling Autumn, but it's not normally that important to the plot unless it's her explaining magic rules or giving Autumn advice. I'm not saying everything Jenna does have to serve some sort of arc or have merit, but I would have loved to learn more about her as a person. There's potential to do it in the second book when she and Autumn were actually able to hang out in person, but it was never really used. Speaking of things not being used, Sean's disability. I wouldn't blame you for forgetting that Sean has auditory processing disorder. I wasn't expecting it to define his character in any way, but Bella Thorne literally never mentions it after the first book. It would have been interesting to have a scene with Sean getting frustrated and not understanding what's being said at a loud event or party. Just see something about his disability to show that even the most popular people can have them. I think this as somebody with a disability, ignoring the disability altogether doesn't make for a good rep. Now obviously Autumn's dyslexia is a large part of her character, and we see her struggle with it throughout the trilogy. I think this is handled a lot better, which I think is mainly because we see and hear Autumn's internal struggles and thoughts about it since we live her life with her. Also, Bella Thorne has dyslexia. She's able to put a bit of herself into the writing to make it more realistic. Topic of representation, the gay rep in this is very lackluster. For example, Ryan from the second book was an example of a flamboyant guy who could be straight. However, in a throwaway comment from Jack in the third book, it's confirmed that he is in fact gay. What was the point of breaking that gender norm for Ryan if it was just going to be retconned in the next book? So the whole bi erasure from the second book, but I already talked about that in detail. I just think there's just way too much guy drama. Maybe it's because I hate love triangles, but it also felt like each book was going in circles with it. I just wanted Autumn to stick to a guy. Though I will say I was hoping she wouldn't end up with Sean. JJ was just the only other choice, but I honestly didn't think they had that much chemistry with each other outside of just being friends. Also, adding Kyralise into the love triangle was so stupid. I'm glad it was dropped after the second book. The second book is honestly the weakest out of the three. The first book had all the cheesy, stereotypical high school tropes and made them fit together perfectly. I honestly felt like I was reading a novelization of a Disney Channel original movie. The second and third books are a lot less trope-filled. The second book doesn't do much with this, instead just focusing more on relationship drama and trying and failing to tell a more mature story. The third book, although it has its problems, at least experiments with its format in an entertaining way. I would definitely recommend the first book. If you love the characters and don't mind sitting through the drama, then I would recommend trekking through the second book to get to the third. It's an interesting trilogy, and I'm definitely happy I got to share it with you. Corn out.